Last year, I went to a GameStop Retro store, and it was right around the time that they had made that announcement. I mean, it was really a few days later, and I was very curious to see what exactly this would entail, and I assumed it meant that part of the store would be converted over to just focusing in on older games, really games before the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and that's kind of what it was, but it was in its early days, and I did say I would come back eventually. The idea being I'll give them time to build up stock and take trade-ins and maybe even pull in some stock from like their warehouses and stuff and build up their displays. So I gave them like 6 or 7 months now, and we're rolling into 2025, and I decided to go and visit again. And I have to say, there are definitely some improvements here, and definitely some struggles, just kind of based on what I've seen. But of course, I logged a lot of the experience here, and even picked up a few games, so we'll take a look at all of that here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. We're gonna start today with this video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by VITURE. Experience a display like no other with the Pro XR glasses. Everything is bigger, better, and brighter with a 135-inch, 120Hz full HD private screen that can be set up whenever you need it. With a peak brightness of 4,000 nits, perceived brightness of 1,000 nits, but also SGS A+ low eye fatigue certified, you'll be able to enjoy incredible views with less eye strain than phones and monitors. Edge-to-edge clarity makes even small text readable on the glasses display, and with myopia adjustments, being nearsighted like I am is no problem. The best part for me, though, is the ability to block out nearly 100% of external light with electrochromic film, making the experience way more immersive even in well-lit areas. With no visible content on the outer lenses and high-quality stereo sound in partnership with Harman, you enjoy your content with no disturbance to people around you. Combined with the VITURE Pro Neckband, you get the ultimate combination of entertainment and convenience. Watch movies, surf the web, answer emails, or play games on a huge display at a moment's notice. With the ability to navigate with just your gaze, hand gesture, or even your phone, it's an experience that shapes itself to your needs at any given time. Oh, and don't forget the VITURE 8-bit DO controller paired with gamepad mode for more precise and longer game sessions. Click the link in the description below and use code SpawnWave to get 10% off the entire order. That's code SpawnWave for 10% off. Thanks to VITURE for sponsoring today's video. So let's start just with that same section, actually the exact same one, because this is the same store that I went to about 6 or 7 months ago, and how it's changed a bit. Now, if you're unaware, GameStop does have specific locations that are set up as retro stores. To my understanding, all GameStops will take trade-ins on retro games, but they won't necessarily advertise them with like a section and a place you can go and buy them. Apparently, stores that don't advertise, if they have it in stock and you just happen to ask them, say for N64 games or something, and they bring them out, you can buy it there, but it's not necessarily one that has a section like this. And in fact, this section has grown somewhat. So it's pretty clear cut. You can see the 360 and the PlayStation 3 games here, and those are the ones that are mostly front facing. And there is a specific reason for it, which actually down here, if we zoom way in, and you can see we do have like an original Xbox here with a game with Crimson Skies. But on this side, we do have some like blue cases that are like the retro gaming cases that are like the placeholder cases that you print out at GameStop. At least that's what happened back in the day. Employees, you'd get these that would come out of the printer, and you'd have to cut them or stock them in these blank shells and just put them out on the shelf. Otherwise, though, PS3 and 360 are completely represented here, mostly because they already have the cases when they trade in. Unfortunately, and I would learn this as I go along, these aren't necessarily placeholders for like the jewel cases that can break. That's just it, unfortunately. A lot of them get traded in disc only. So when you look here, and you can see these are all original PlayStation games, I actually went and picked out a few of these because I was curious how this would go if I go up there. Is there a case on the other side? They just don't want to put out here because cases for some of these games do have value. Like, they have, if I zoom in here, they have like Mega Man Legends. They have, I did notice Marvel vs. Capcom, which I believe was an $80 game there, and that's an expensive game. Even like Primal Rage has value. So I picked out a few of like the cheaper games here just to test the theory, to see what I'd get exactly, which we'll get to more on that here in a minute, kind of based on a bit of a struggle technically with how they have this presented. But I will give them this. Again, as I'm looking around, we got Wii U and Wii here. And the prices aren't bad on some of these games. Like, if you're looking for, like, games that are, they're not necessarily worth shipping because then the shipping ends up being the same amount as the price, and you're trying to just get some of the games to fill out the collection, it's actually not bad necessarily. Like, I see, like, Mega Man Anniversary Collection here for the GameCube at $13. And even down here at the bottom, they have, like, 3DS, DS, even Dreamcast games. I saw that. I was a little surprised that they have those coming in here as well. But if we go through here, they do have accessories, which even the hard drives aren't priced terribly. Although, I think there's a reason for that. I don't really know how many people are coming in looking for 360 hard drives like these. I mean, even like these ones aren't bad. Like you see like up here a 250 gigabyte hard drive for $20 with the casing and stuff for the top of the 360. 120 gig hard drives are like $15, and like even down here $20 for the 250 gig for the slim. So overall, not terrible. Even right here, we have this is the DualShock original one. It's $13. They even put little rings around the analog sticks to try to help out. So for actual Sony, like, first-party branded controller right there, that's a pretty good pickup. I actually probably should have grabbed that now that I'm looking at it. The Wii Remote at $40, I guess because it also works on the Wii U. That felt a little pricey when I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit much for that. But you can also see down here, they do have a case that they've set up. They actually have two cases. So I went ahead and grabbed pictures of them because it was kind of interesting to just kind of see the way they're trying to set this up, where they can't put cartridges just out there. Clearly, people will take them, especially if they're like higher valued cartridges. So they have like NES, Super Nintendo, N64, just at least front facing. There's Diddy Kong Racing at $30. So again, the pricing at times better than eBay, at times worse. It really is kind of a grab bag at this point. The benefit clearly is you can actually see it in front of you here. So you can examine it before you decide to buy it or not. Oh, I should have grabbed San Francisco Rush 2049. I'm just now noticing that, actually. But the other thing that was kind of interesting is they do have DS and 3DS. And this seemed to be a very popular thing from what people were saying. Because this was somewhat of a popular section. I was a little surprised just in the time that I was there, like 15 or 20 minutes. People were just kind of shuffling past it and like pointing it out. And sure, it has kind of like that retro nostalgia driven aspect to it, but I mean, people were genuinely interested in some of the stuff. However, as you can see, the 3DS prices, which look, they're expensive online. A little surprised to see $250 on a 3DS XL. Not like a new 3DS XL, but like just a regular 3DS XL, which again, eBay, if it's like a US based one that's in good condition, you can work up to this amount, but it just, you see that and you're like, wow, we've gone up in pricing clearly with retail around 3DS in general, but even that just felt kind of pricey on it. And then you have the Wii U down here at $130. Not a bad price actually on the 32 gigabyte Wii U with the gamepad and everything. So that actually is worth picking up if you don't have it yet, just for one, the homebrew community around it is very, very good. There's a lot of value there, but also kind of from a collector's standpoint, especially since just the Wii is $100. Like, yeah, the Wii U will play all of those. And then when you load up homebrew and soft mod it, you can play GameCube games on it. Like, there's a lot there in terms of that value. Even like the PS3 Super Slim at $90. Again, some of these systems aren't terribly priced, depending. 3DS, maybe that's just the market for it at this point. Also, apparently the DS Lite is very popular in store, and now that I'm seeing it here on the website with that price point where you can get it for just about $56, that's actually pretty good. So it makes sense if those have been selling through quickly. And I mean, at $56, you get a DS Lite with the charger in, we'll say, good enough condition. I mean, the library of titles, along with the Game Boy Advance functionality and the great battery life, yeah, that's definitely a good pickup. We also have this case here that was kind of funny because they mentioned to me they can't really put DS games in here. And this is another weakness that they have currently. But like, they have Game Boy Advance games that are like, some of these are fairly valuable. Like, you see the Mega Man Battle Network here, $45. Yeah, those tend to be kind of pricey. Even like the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past 4 Swords game, that one's kind of pricey as well. And they just have PSP games down here, priced all over the place, by the way. And they, of course, just being UMD only. But the thing they were running into is, if they just have the DS cartridge, they can't put them in here. They need these plastic cases around them, because otherwise, if this even gets tapped, they all just fall over. And I know what they're talking about because we were trying to figure out all kinds of ways to display DS games back in the day if they didn't have a case. And we attempted something like this, and it just didn't work. They fell all over the place. We even got to the point where we had a bin of just cheaper DS games, like $10 or less, and we just kept them on the counter. Otherwise, there are more expensive ones that were just the cartridge. We had to have like a full glass countertop underneath of it with shelves that we could just kind of set them down. And that helped, but you had to really be dedicated specifically to retro games, which I think is the biggest issue that they have right now. They're kind of like 1 foot in right now with this. Like, we'll try it out and see, but the problem they run into is behind the counter, in the shelves and like their drawers, they have a ton of games they can't put out. There were a few other people there. One person was like asking about games, and they had like all these different Pokemon games back there, like Omega Ruby, Pokemon X, and they couldn't seem to find a place to put them, which is wild to me because those are the high dollar retro games that people would actually be paying out money for, Pokemon games especially. But they just had like bins of these things back there, and it's not necessarily that like the employee's fault. It's just they're so much dedicated to it, and they're not the ones buying these display cases. It, again, seems to be GameStop kind of like almost uncertain if they should make the move to retro. And I gotta say, if you look at the stores, you kind of see some of this right here, right? Where it's just a lot of like puzzles and just all kinds of almost memorabilia, action figures, cups, mugs. That's like what 40% of the store is now. It's not even video games. It's all this extra stuff. And I guess there's good margin there and it works. But if you just eliminated some of that and expanded the retro section, there would be legitimate talking points for people maybe get hit with a wave of nostalgia and just decide to buy on a whim. But also you would have reason for people to consistently come back just to see what you've gotten in on trade, especially when you think about the way that the market is currently going, where we are moving more and more towards just all digital, as opposed to even having 3 major platform holders that will provide physical games for you. I mean, it seems like Xbox is just about done with physical media. We're trying to figure out with Sony what they're going to do, but at the very least, they are working away from just physical games as well. And Nintendo, while they are sticking with Switch 2 when it comes to cartridges, even the way that they're treating this with like the virtual game card does make you wonder about that future as well. Basically, the writing's on the wall, and this would be the time to start adapting to something like retro games, even though I know the pool of supply is limited. Basically, you're just working with what's already out there, and it's kind of just sloshing around. You can still get newer third-party controllers. You can get those systems that are like clone systems to play these different games. There are places to make money around these games that are just kind of changing hands back and forth. And with GameStop, I mean, they do have a large network of stores to take on trade. So the games that I picked up, I actually had a couple of them, like 5 or 6. So I go up to the counter with them, and unfortunately, the PlayStation 1 games and the Dreamcast game that I had picked out, they couldn't locate them. It was so the cases were out there, but the games weren't in the drawers, which, again, I've gone through that myself back in the day. It's like some stuff slips through the cracks, especially on some of the cheaper games, and just kind of how it works out. So the games that I did end up bringing home were GameCube titles, and you can see them here with the placeholder artwork with FIFA, Sims 2, and True Crime Streets of LA. Nothing high dollar, as I mentioned. I guess the Sims 2 is the most expensive one, but unfortunately, they were all disc only, so I haven't really seen so far any cases there that represent the actual like games beyond PS3, 360, and that occasional original Xbox game. The discs themselves are in good shape, so they should all work fine. There's no major scratches or gashes on either side of them. But it also does make me look at these as disc-only purchases, which, when you start to line it up like that online, isn't as favorable to GameStop, even with the discounts, say with the Pro card and stuff, and the occasional coupon that you get each month. Now, there is one other development here with their newly found retro push. Even though it's not heavily advertised technically, and it's not something that is super important in stores at this point from what I've seen, because they do have signage saying that they are doing trade-in on these older titles, and I assume that's just going to be across all of their stores, they seem to be getting better stock for their online store. So as I've kind of looked around here, I've noticed that even things like, look, your Smash Brothers Melee, that is in stock, it seems. Like you can have it shipped to home, which is great. And I've kind of scrolled through here and just noticed that, wow, a lot of these games that weren't in stock before, like months and months ago, are actually showing as available and good to purchase. So if nothing else, if you don't have a retro store for GameStop around you, you might have the ability to buy some of this stuff online. Here, of course, is the gamble. I don't know if they're going to be complete or not. And my time buying with GameStop online has really been a 50-50 experience. Sometimes I've had it fully complete, manual, even like the little safety instruction inserts with that, and it looked mint. Other times I have just got the disc in like one of those yellow CD cases, folded up sometimes if it's like a DS or Vita game. So unfortunately, I'm not really sure what you're going to get. So keep that in mind, especially when you look at the price point. And if it is closer to complete online, might be worth seeking that out on a place like eBay as opposed to going online here with GameStop. Interestingly enough, look at this. Need for Speed Most Wanted is $50 on the 360 specifically. Awesome game, but it's interesting. Some of those 360 launch titles that weren't backwards compatible with like the Xbox Series and stuff have held their value quite a bit. It's this, and I think Peter Jackson's King Kong, I think it's another one that's kind of expensive. So the 360 library quietly gaining some value. So keep that one in mind when you're out with like your retro collecting adventures at different conventions. But that's going to do it here for an update on GameStop and their retro stores. It's getting better, but I don't necessarily see GameStop as going all in on this just yet. And there seems to be a lot of concern around GameStop's future in the first place. And it's hard really to push back on that just based on the industry and kind of where it's headed with this digital future. And I do also want to give a shout out to the different employees that were at GameStop. Alex did check me out there, and they were very nice and did their best to find the games. But I think a lot of this just comes back to GameStop, the company, some of the logistics they themselves have set up for the employees. They need to do a better job if they really want to make a retro push, as they've kind of shown interest, it seems anyway, over the last year or so, at least with the messaging online. I think there is a market there if they do want to push for it. Just comes down to if they really want to dedicate the space in stores that's needed to make this a legitimate venture. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, especially if you've gone out to any of these retro GameStop stores. What has your experience been like there, especially in the last, I don't know, month or two, since they've had time to really build up stock in store? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.